Hi and welcome to this month's work in progress video for the Process Diary. This month we will be looking at basic head modeling. I'll only be going as far as the basic the mesh of the head. We won't be modeling any eyes or ears or any of that sort of thing. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that there are several techniques in which you can model a head, and everyone has their own preferences. On the DVD, which I'll be releasing later this year, I will be addressing various methods of head modeling. In the other two character videos, we'll be looking at those different methods. But the one that I've chosen for this particular video is one that seems to make a lot of sense to me, and I'll explain along the way why it does. And this is basically building each of the features and then stitching them together to make sure that your edge loops sort of line up. And once you've got that basis down, then you can refine and knowing that any details that you add, your edge loops and your basic structure, your foundation mesh, is internally consistent. So the method that we're going to be using to create the head is basically just building the features onto these elevations, the front that you can see here and the side that you can see here. Once the features are built, we'll just basically stitch them together, making sure that our edge loops are consistent. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a plane. There you see it in front and side view, and shrink that down. Move it over to the side here, because I'm immediately going to add a mirror modifier. Enable clipping, so if I hit my G key and grab this square, you can see how the middle line there sort of stays on the x-axis. If I click and then grab again, you'll see that those two vertices stay in the center, but everything else sort of shifts away from it. And I'm going to position this down here around the chin, and in side view, move this forward in my Y direction. These drawings are just going to be a template. It won't be an exact a copy of the drawings. My drawings and my 3D models always have a very there's sort of an approximation that there is always a point of difference between them. So I'm just going to extrude this again in the X direction, push it back in the Y, maybe move this up a little bit. Move this out over here and move this over here to the side of the face. So we can already see that the jaw is being constructed. And already I'm going to begin to edit. Extrude these out from here. Extrude these out again, and these will eventually form a loop that goes around the back of the head. I'm now immediately going to go straight to the eye. So I'm going to give it a vertices 8, and I'm going to give it a radius of 0.1, so that when I put it in there, it won't cross the line, and we'll have an immediate copy on the other side. So I'm just going to scale that up. Now in side view, I'm going to rotate this circle. I'm going to snap my cursor to selection. Select the top half of the circle. Change my pivot to 3D cursor and rotate this around so that we sort of get this closed eye. I'm going to select one, hit my L key to rotate this eye socket a little bit like that. And already we can see that we're starting to get our eye. I'm going to switch it back to median point for center point so that my scaling works a little better. Scale a little bit in the Z. Now I'm going to be using the eye here. Extrude, S for scale. Moving this up to begin to create the brow segment of the character, because once we get our brow and we get our nose in place, we can begin to extrude down the nose. Here I'm going to extrude these out, move these down a little bit in the Z, and scale them out. These are going to begin to form the cheeks. Now obviously that is going to create a face, and that is going to create a face there. But we can already see what we want these vertices to do. and we want our inner vertices, of course, to begin to come towards the nose, and our outer vertices kind of move towards the cheek and the ear. But these vertices here are eventually going to flatten out. I'm going to extrude another set from here. And this is going to begin to build the nose area. So I'm going to extrude an edge, move it to the X direction, and move this out in the Y. I'm going to hit my S key, Y key, 0 key, and that should constrain those to the median point of 0 scale in the Y direction. I'm going to add an edge loop here by hitting my K key, moving this out to the nose. Again, scale this in the Y direction and move that forward in the Y, so we maybe a little over in the X. So we begin to build the bridge of this nose here. We can already begin to sort of shuffle some of these vertices around to put a little bit of ease on the loop, so nothing looks so sharp. I'm going to extrude out a few more points here for the rest of the brow. First in the X, and then I'm going to push them back in the Y. So they kind of correspond with the radials around the eye. Going to edge mode here, select my edges and fill in the faces. Go back to vertex mode so that we can begin to construct the brow. Now what I can do is I can select all these points here and extrude up in the Z direction, and already this gives us the character's brow. See how simple it already looks. Selecting these 3 vertices here now, I'm going to extrude down a part of the nose. I'm going to stop there and extrude again because there's going to be a nostril around there. I'm going to rotate this slightly, and I'm going to begin to push out some of these vertices into other directions. This is where a nostril is going to form. This might have to be a little bit higher. This is obviously the bottom of the eye. Don't worry if this is looking a little bit too squinty right now. We could always just scale that eye up. Rotate it. Probably going to need another loop there, possibly. We could probably extrude the beginnings of a nostril here, which means we'll have to extrude back into the face. Let's see what happens. We need to extrude back that face there, and we'll need to extrude back that face along here. Going into perspective mode for a second. Let's see what's going on here. Actually, that would make a pretty good face there. Now, that looks like a bit of a dog's breakfast down here, to tell you the truth. So what I'm going to do to keep these as elegant as possible, I'm going to hit S to scale, hit Z to constrain it to the Z direction, and hit 0. And that's going to flatten out those vertices. And I'm going to sort of, before I turn that up though, I'm going to, I will turn it up so that I can make those selections here. And I'm going to scale those, constraining it in the Y direction. And now I'm going to have to, again, scale it in the Z. Pull those back. Probably have to scale it in the Z one more time. As you can see from the front here, I'm going to go into... I'm going to put on shaded. We can see already how the nose is beginning to form. Remember, this is a very cartoon like character, and so I'm going for very low poly, so that when I go into sub smoothing, it's just going to have nice angles and and really basic shapes. So I won't be modeling any sort of nostrils, sort of like the insides of nostrils or anything like that. Okay, so while I'm here, I'm going to select those vertices there. Might have to extrude those down. Probably have to shift those up in the Z direction a little bit. Now, I'm not going to be shaping the mouth just yet. What I am going to be doing is leaving the suggestion of a mouth for now. The mouth is probably going to be one of the last things that I model. Okay, we'll probably need to curve these around a little bit, move these up over here. And clearly that's going to correspond with that face, and that vertex is going to correspond with that face. So we may need to cut two more edge loops here to be consistent. So that's the K key, make sure the pink line's splitting it vertically. In edge mode, face there, face there, face there. There is a faster way of doing this, which I may show you at some point when it becomes a little bit relevant again. And here is just a suggestion of the mouth for now. It's okay, so we've got that, and we might have to move that vertex back. So in side view, yeah, we've got that gradient there. Alrighty. Now, these loops will have to start forming the ridges around the mouth. So let's see, what do we want to do here? We probably want to extrude a point out in this direction. Let's see if this is the face. Probably. This is the beginning of the crease, yes. Which means then we can extrude again in this direction. Push that back. Use that for a face there. And then basically this is going to come down like so. I have to push these back. These will this will be the line. Sometimes I like to just draw the lines out. I'm going to merge those two at last there, and going into edge mode, fill in that face there, and that face there. Vertex mode. This now gives us a little bit of the features to massage into place. And we've got the beginnings of our edge loops. Now, we'll probably need to put another edge loop in here so that we can close off this edge. Let's see, have I done this right? This edge and this edge. So we can begin to connect up the eye to the nose. This method is basically building the features and then connecting the vertices so that you can keep edge loops consistent. Now this vertex here will probably correspond with this here. So I'm going to put in a face, and I'm going to go to subdivide multi, and I'm going to go number of cuts 2. This gives me 2 points which correspond with these two. Selecting those, I'm going to give this a little bit of a shape, and so then we can just fill in these faces there. And what have we got here? We've got a, let's see, do we need another edge? I think we need a third edge loop here, which wouldn't hurt any. Fill in that face, fill in that face, and we've got our cheeks, mouth, nose, and eye. So what we've got left is the rest of this cheek and the brow to there, and then that'll be the first step of our face modeling completed. Let's continue that edge loop around there. I wonder if this corresponds. Should do quite nicely. Keeping our brow ridge there, which allows us to close off that face there, and finally that face there. And that is pretty much a low poly face completed. Let's take a look at this. So I'm going to go into shaded view and into 3D. So let's take a look at this side of the screen. Already you can see that the major features of the face are modeled. So naturally the next thing we have to do is extrude out the head and the neck, and this is kind of the easy part because basically what we're going to be doing is taking these vertices here and just extruding them up, rotating them around, maybe scaling them in a little bit until we've revolved out a basic head shape with a little bit of modification here, I guess. Sometimes I can sort of get into a bit of a mess before I even get to the next section. So what I sometimes like to do is jump ahead a little, take out a bunch of vertices, and bring them down to the neck position. Probably have to merge this one into that one, so we'll go merge. I always like to do at last. And go into top view for a second and make sure that that we're getting a nicely rounded shape. That sort of corresponds. Don't worry about the ears just yet. The ears will be a separate issue if we get around to the ears today. Sort of leaving this as a bit of a gap. Shouldn't use too many vertices because ultimately it's just a fairly low poly sphere. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Yep. Or a low poly revolve. By filling in, okay, I think we've got a bit of an issue here. We've got one too few. I think it's because we attached this vertice over here. No matter, we can just remove this edge, add another edge loop in here, and we can select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in edge mode. Now, if I hit F, see this option down here, skin faces edge loops. If you hit that, it'll fill in all the faces automatically. Obviously we need to recalculate normals here, so I'm going to select all by hitting A twice and then going Control N, recalculate normals, and that should do it. Make sure it's set to solid, and then go back to vertice mode, and then you can just massage the vertices into place. To sort of where they look right in belonging. Now, finally, we definitely need to fill in these faces here. Now, we've got an uneven number, so we may need to split the difference here. Let's fill in one there and fill in one there. And that's basically the head. I mean, at the refining stage, we'll get right into that and go into subsurf. But I sort of want to get onto the neck here. Now, the jaw needs to wrap in before we extrude in the neck. So I'm going to select all of these vertices here. So I'm going to go into front view here for a second. And I'm going to extrude and scale in, moving this in. And I'm going to have to, let me move this back here, and turn off shaded view in this side view here for a second, selecting all of these vertices here and scaling them to 0 in the Z and then rotating them back, because the look that I'm wanting for this particular character is definitely the chiseled edge look. And so I scale those ones in the Y direction. So we've got this lovely facing here. Now, every time I sort of bring in these a little bit in the Y, there, we've got this, the jaw now looks good, and then that's where the neck's going to come out of. So just before I do that, I'm going to make sure that these are flattened once again. There we go. Bring those up, and we'll worry about those in a little while. But then what we want to do is take those vertices there and extrude them. That's going to be the basis of our neck, which we'll play around with in a little while. But essentially, because he's got quite that bull neck, this is where we sort of want to start pushing these vertices into the places that we want them to go. And that neck is definitely going to fan out. Now, taking a look over here, we know that the neck is actually going to have to blend into this. Now, this could either be covered by the ear. Let's take the rest of these vertices here for a second and extrude them down. Maybe a little, push them out a little bit in this direction, and see what we need to do to sort of reconcile these vertices. We probably just need to bring down one of those and then put in an extra edge loop. That should probably do it. So that would be around there. And then we'd want this to continue. So with my knife tool, I'm going to bring up and make a face here, and then close that neck off there. And now we've got the basic structure. Now with just a little bit of smoothing and finessing, we'll have the head complete with neck there. And this is basically how I get my character heads to begin to work. Okay, so we'll leave it there for now, and we'll just work on the mouth before we finish this tune of getting the basic head together. Now, the reason why I left the mouth for the end is because I didn't want to ruin these edge loops by thinking about all the vertices that have to go in the mouth. The mouth can actually be pushed in, but before I do that, what I want to do is make sure I've got enough edges in order to do this. So first thing I'm going to do, okay, so that's going to be an interesting loop that's not going to work that well. How about here? Okay, this one will work. And maybe that is going to have to be where the mouth is. This is, we're going to have to pull back a grin, so I'm going to take these vertices here and push them up. These are going to be sort of forming the upper lip. And these ones are going to be forming the chin. The lower lip is going to come out of this. You'll see how this works in a second, if you can't guess already. So we've got the basic mouth shape here, which works okay with the edge loops. We can always come back and correct that bit. But the way I make the mouth is I go into face select mode, and I select these 6 faces here, and then I just do a couple of extrusions and scales. Now this first one, I'm going to push out, scaling the X a little bit, rotating a little bit in, and then I'm going to go and extrude that again, scale it in. It's probably going to be our neutral face. Again, scale it in the X. You'll sort of see why in a second. And then the last one, I'm going to extrude, scale a little bit, and then push that in the Y. Maybe scale that down in the Z. Sort of leave that for a second. It's looking pretty basic right now, but we can already see that we've got the basic shape of our lips, which we can now make a sort of a fold there if we wanted to, and that would make quite a nice lower lip area. And the fold sort of has to blend up into the rest of the mouth, and we've got enough information now to really begin to form a good set of lips here for our character. I've noticed a lot of tutorials when that comes to the mouth. Let's see what we've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Have between 6 and 8 faces in a loop to make a fairly good mouth. When you subdivide this many vertices, you sort of end up with some very pleasant results. They seem to work well. And I'm going to leave that closed because when we come to refining, this is going to allow us to extrude out the interior of the mouth when we go into refining. But as far as this basic head tutorial goes, I am quite happy with that.